Pulisic dentro, Rafa. Gol! Ebram! Gol! È l'azione più bella del mondo! È l'azione più bella!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host Oli Fisher, joined once again by the birthday boy, Anthony Torgrud.
That's me.
35 today.
I am not 35. It's the second time he's made that joke. I'm 32. Feel every bit of it. I was just telling him that I went and played top golf on Sunday and I still hurt. So, yeah. You know what I think is wrong? There we go.
Hey.
Oh, okay. No, I was so confused. It's like something's wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it, but
Yeah, not only is that
You're
right
wrong.
alphabetically, but it feels right given the magnitude of the day. Got anything planned? I mean, you're hopping on this at 7 a.m. So...
yeah. No, I'm just a dedicated worker. No, we're going to dinner tonight, but
nice.
that's it. I think we're doing stuff on the weekend. Obviously 4th of July is Friday, so we're having some people over for that, and then I'll just kind of carry over into the weekend.
4th of July it is. I've got the day off. I might drink exclusively Blue Moon.
There you go. That's a good one.
Yeah. What's the best day of the week to have a birthday on, do you think? Is it simply a Friday?
I think so.
Or Saturday because everyone's off? Or like... So the way I think about it is I tend to do something with girlfriend and family and then friends, which is a bit more, a bit more open-ended and usually drink-related, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So maybe be a Friday, so you can do the family thing on the Friday and then...
and then that way you get to, see like your work buddies, but you don't have to invite them out on the weekend or anything. You just be like, oh, good seeing you guys. Thanks for coming by,
Yeah, pop for a couple after work and then fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've got a Thursday this year. Not too bad. I think.
Yeah, it's not terrible. Yeah.
No,
Tuesday, probably the worst day for it, to be honest. You're in the shit of the work week, and there is no end in sight. So
I'd even probably rather have a Monday because you can celebrate the Saturday, Sunday, and then like Monday's my birthday, so I can't be expected to do anything. Yeah, you'd just turn it into a long weekend, wouldn't you? Anyway, birthday chat aside, and also you may have noticed that I am the same colour as the red on the Milan badge. It's because it's fucking red hot in the UK. You've had a bit of a heat wave as well, haven't you?
I think almost the whole country, which for
world.
us is abnormal. Yeah, honestly, it has been at least the Western world. I think it's just a wave for some other parts of the world, but
it's not particularly nice. It's mid-30s in Celsius, which I googled is 94 degrees Fahrenheit. People are going to call me a European pussy. Totally understandable. I get it. We're not used to the heat. The country's not built for it. I've seen a lot of discourse about why don't you have air conditioning? It's this hot for 5 days a year. It would be incredibly inefficient to do something like that. So we just moan for a week. That's what we do. Anyway, before we dive into this week's pod, I want to say thank you to all of our Substack founding members: Des Winter McGlynn, Tito, Mike Morris, Pullman, Joey Gawler, Kemin, MJ, Mats, Luke Villano, Raul Escobar, Jack, Carlo Fassi, Nasser, Merlin, Finker, Derek Favretto, Havanli 13, Mike Schulz, JT Physio, Tarek, Marco Villela, Roberto Racinos, Ken, Medicane, Gianluca. One breath. Thoughts
on how well you did?
Good. No mistakes, one breath.
Nice. I'm impressed. I didn't listen. My mother texted me, so I read that, but yeah.
She says it's hot. It's red hot outside. On the Substack in the past week, and as a reminder, you can try a week for free, so you see how the cycle goes on there. The most recent article was done by Isaac, went up last night. It was titled "Get into the Bottom of Kamada's Loan Move." So there's been a lot of chat around why it's a loan with option to buy and a buyback. He goes into the benefits of it, both from our point of view, lectures, incentives, and the accounting tricks, and also sort of debunking some of the myths around it as well. Pub chat from over the weekend, Stefano and Lorenzo did, was about the start to the Mercato and how Samuele Ricci's signing has kicked things off a little bit, but the area is still to fill and things like that. Ricci has not officially signed yet, but it's expected to happen later in the week, so that'll probably be our bonus pod, a deep dive on him. We can maybe do something on Modric too, given that's been confirmato now by Iglitare. Speaking of which, the last bonus pod that we did, which also featured Maddison, was a deep dive into Tare's press conference that he did last week behind closed doors with various journalists. We went through some of the key themes that he discussed. And the most recent newsletter was "Thank you for the good times, Teo." He's on his way to Al Hilal. who are through to the quarterfinal of the Club World Cup. Woo! And yeah, he's going there. What it means for the transfer window, and in that you find the news bulletin, which has all the main stories from the main website over the past week. Right, then. So thought we'd do something a little bit different this week. We're going to look at the rest of Serie A, mainly because Milan are kind of like doing stuff but not doing stuff, if that makes sense. There's a lot of confidences filtering. There's a lot of the player wants Milan only. There's a lot of Milan need to raise their offer just on various fronts at the moment.
The usual.
Yeah, those are the bingo things to tick off. So thought we'd have a little look around Serie A at what's going on. Because it's been a bit of a circus, and I feel like we've only mentioned it in passing so far about how revolutionary it has been. In fact, only 2 teams that finished in the top 9 of the table, so that's down to Bologna, are going into next season. Oh, sorry, it's 3 teams, including Bologna. It's 2 teams above us. Going into next season with the same head coach. And one of them, Igor Tudor at Juventus, was not really meant to be that head coach. They were kind of planning.
Yeah, they shopped around for a lot of people.
Upgrade.
If I'm him, I take that as disrespect and I leave. Like,
Yeah,
hey, you didn't want me anyways. Why would I stick around because you couldn't get anyone else? Screw you, But also, I just dislike Juventus. So there's that.
I've always kind of rated Tudor as a coach, and do you know what? He got them over the line eventually. It went down to the last day in the end, but Juve were never in a title race, and they were pretty much on a 4th place island for a large part of the season. So it would have been easy for them to, I guess, fuck up and buckle to Roma's pressure, because Roma's pace in the second half of the season under Ranieri was ridiculous. But he got them over the line. They're in the Champions League, and I thought that meant that they were going to.
We lost you. Your audio's gone. Unless it's me. Unless mine just went. But you could hear me? Well.
Hello? 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 Am I back? You can hear me? I can't hear you now.
How about now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Sorry, everyone. This is
All right,
weird.
there we go.
I don't know what happened there. Yeah.
Yeah, no
And
idea.
you're done again.
Oh no.
Yeah. Now I hear you. I don't know. Tilt your mic closer, maybe, or it
Yeah,
could be
it's
me.
showing-
Dude. I don't know.
It's showing the mic volume as pretty consistent on my laptop.
I hear you consistently now. So
Okay. Should we just run with it?
yeah, let's just run with it.
Yeah, I still hear you fine. All right.
All right.
Sorry, everyone. Anyway, I wanted to start the Serie A recap with Napoli because they won the league last season. And they probably had, for a champion team, shall we say, the most doubt about them going into the summer. Because we thought that they were going to lose their main asset, which is Antonio Conte. It didn't happen. De Laurentiis sat down with him, clearly offered him the right guarantees in order to stay and build a multi-year project, shall we say. And they've been the most active, to the extent that it feels like they're padding out their lead quite a bit over the other teams. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. They're going to be really hard to beat this season.
Yeah.
They like I said, they kept Conte, the guy who everyone said, if you get him what he needs, he'll win you a title. He just won't stick around long. Well, they got him what he needs. He won them a title, and now we're in uncharted territory of him sticking around and getting more reinforcements. I mean, they're really doing absolutely everything correctly and everything that he needs and wants, and it's going to be difficult for anyone else in Serie A to catch them. I think we might be best poised to do it just because we have the only other experienced manager around. I shouldn't say only experience, but only top level. He's one more Scudetti than Conte, but that's probably just because Conte's actually ventured outside of Italy a few times. So, yeah, it'll be a tough season, but I think Napoli are clear favorites to repeat.
Yeah, and I mean, it should be mentioned as well that they've actually only made 2 moves official. One is Luca Marinucci arriving from Empoli for 9 million, so that doesn't necessarily move the needle too much, but I think that's a good signing for the money. And then the other one is Kevin De Bruyne on a free. Now, that should be a blockbuster, but we know how much he's struggled with injuries in the past couple of seasons. If you can give them 30 starts next season across all comps, I think that would be pretty good for the midfield.
Yeah.
But I would say the central midfield area is probably the one that needed the least work.
Mhm.
And yet they went out and got him. So they're strengthening a strength there. But the rumours that are circulating, about them getting another top centre forward, Darwin Núñez seems to be pretty close. Noah Lang for the left wing position. Like, they're trying to build a real two player per position squad. So the money's clearly available for them to go out and strengthen. And yeah, as you say, I think they're just pulling out in front of everybody at the moment, especially considering the team that they got pushed all the way to the wire by last season, Inter. Could it have gone worse?
They do have 2 world-class strikers right now. If they just convince Osimhen to stay,
That's true.
They already have the best striker in Serie A, and he's want away. He wants to leave. They're willing to freeze him out, which to me is crazy. Just make him play.
Yeah, I mean, some of the teams that Osimhen is being linked with, because we're getting into the same sort of territory as last season, where the top European clubs are being scared off by the demands in terms of wages and in terms of signing on fees and I guess price tag a little bit as well. But yeah, you're getting into that territory where Milan are getting chucked into the race. Now, I don't think it would ever happen.
No, but man.
Do you know what? It's just getting into those weird areas again, though, where it's like, no, he can't. Like, he's got to join a top 10 club in the world, right?
Yeah.
But
I think it is his agent that's screwing him in his career more than anything with these ridiculous demands, with him being so vocal and public about it, because I'm sure there's a lot of players that have ridiculous demands that are, behind closed doors that you don't really hear about. And then it gets kind of swept away. But when everyone is seeing the agent yell, or, not yelling, but speaking out against Napoli speaking out against him, the player speaking out, and then turning down 50 million euros a year from Al Hilal, which is now a top 10 team in the world. They just knocked out City. Big asterisk there, obviously not a real statement. And then also Galatasaray is the team that's courting you the most. Like, I don't know, that to the big clubs is looking at it like, maybe this guy's not worth the trouble, even if he is, a top 3 striker in the world right now. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tell where he's at because he was at Galatasaray. But I mean, if the opportunity is there for us to swoop in this season, you have to do it. But there's no chance that Napoli lets him come to us when they are looking at Serie A and thinking that's probably our only competition this year.
Yeah, and also we'd have to completely blow up our wage structure in order to bring him in, unless he was willing to make concessions, which it sounds like he's not willing to do. We'll see. I mean, I think Napoli are interesting. I should mention they've made 3 sales already to raise over 20 million. Nathan has gone to Real Betis, Caprile to Cagliari on a permanent, and same with Gaetano going to Cagliari on a permanent. So, a bit of money coming in, but yeah, there's going to be more major incomings, it seems. And it's I don't know. It just feels like they've reached a point of no return with Conte, despite winning the league, and yet they came over that, and now I'm a bit worried. I think we could be looking at a multi-year thing with them now, unless they have another fallout, or unless it turns out they've already spent the Kvara and Osimhen money pretty much up front, and they're not able to strengthen the squad much after this window. We'll see. But for now, you've got to put them as the big red-hot favourites for next season. Moving on to Inter, I was going to say before, could it have gone worse since that Champions League final? Since kickoff in that Champions League final, it's been a pretty big downfall for our cousins across the Navigli.
I just want to check because I think they've won 1 game since then, right? Since the
they beat River Plate, didn't they?
Oh, and Urawa were Red Diamonds, but they almost lost that. It was 1-1, and then they scored in the 92nd minute. So
yeah,
but
not
good.
Look, I mean, losing Inzaghi was always going to be a massive blow for them, because no matter how much Beppe Marotta says that they were prepared for it, and no matter how much the club are downplaying sort of the way that separation took place, it appears that it was up in the air, and it was a bit of a shock when it happened, and it came after a defeat in that manner. And it's sort of left the entire thing uncertain as to where do they turn. You know, I thought it was going to be an interesting summer for them if everything remained the same, because Oak Tree, it's their first summer since like fully taking over. What are they going to want to do? Do they want their money back? Is it going to be a shoestring budget for them, or are they going to try and sort of raise the value of the asset and double down, try and win things again? I thought it was a bit of a crossroads summer for them as it was. But to fast forward to where we are now, 1st of July, they're out of the Club World Cup. Some of their fans will probably think that's a blessing, but they lost in the round 16 to Fluminense, which was a bit of a shock. Did you see the comments?
I did.
Bless him.
Beautiful. Yeah, great guy.
Yeah. For those who haven't seen, to summarize, he said he was thinking of the Milan fans while he was playing the game, and that he chatted to Allegri to get a bit of advice on how to play Inter. And if the advice contributed in a big way to the win, I think we're going to open up a derby dominant streak.
Well, we're already on one, so let's extend.
Yeah, we're on one. Yeah.
I think Inter's in worst case scenario, you know, and I think the appointment of Kivu signals that there is no money in the budget, that they're looking at how it was ran before and they're thinking this is not sustainable, because it's a fund, just like Elliott, just like Redbird, and we know how they operate. Like, we now get to look at it as the experts on this crappy situation that both Milan clubs have found themselves in, and they're in a lot worse financial state than we were when Redbird took over, and they have really high wage bills. So the easiest way to reduce that deficit and get closer to the black or the green is to get rid of a lot of players, reduce that wage bill. You got Hakan, who is a want away. Beppe Marotta already said that, and Lautaro made a big statement saying, if you don't want to be here, get the fuck out. And then Marotta came out and said, oh yeah, Lautaro's talking about Hakan. Like, there's no harmony in this dressing room, and not surprised that it's that guy. You know, what do they always say? If she cheats on you with them, they'll cheat on them with you, or whatever it is. You know, he's gonna leave anyways. We knew that. And then of course his wife is talking about people being loyal to him, which is hilarious given their relationship.
There's some sitcom ironies type shit.
Oh yeah, it's great. Fuck him. I hope the worst for him. And yeah, I think a lot of the players are gonna leave. Maybe not all of them. I think Lautaro's gonna stay. He's Inter through and through, and a part of me actually really respects that. I think that's a good thing. But a lot of them are gonna go. You know, I think we'll see Summer leave because he's getting up there in age. So depending on what his contract's like, I don't know. But there's options available, good options available for goalkeeper on a lower budget. They might even get Milinkovic-Savic. I mean, his release is like 18 or something. So that would be a good replacement. I don't know. There's moves
he
that
has
could
been
be
linked
made,
with Napoli actually.
Well, they just renewed
Merit, instead.
So,
there are a lot of players that because I keep seeing reports about, you know, into having money to spend and things like that, but kind of like us, it seems that it's dependent on them raising funds through sales, and it because they've got such an aging squad, it feels like there'd be some pretty painful exits for that to take place, because they're not going to get money for Mkhitaryan, they're not going to get money for Acerbi and players like this. You know, it would have to be players that have a bit of value. So I've seen Bishek potentially leaving, you know, and then they might use some of that money to finance a move for Leone. Like, there's things where I don't know. I don't think there'll be a huge amount of player movement there, basically. But it wouldn't surprise me if Bonnie, who they're signing from Parma, replaces Thuram.
Oh yeah, I could see
either
that for
now
sure.
or down the line.
He's on big wages, so I could see them looking to move on. You know, he was obviously a free transfer, so that plus Valenza, they need that, and I could see that move happening. That's the one thing that Inter has going for them, is most of their signings were free. Not most, but you know, a good chunk of those big wage bill players were free transfers. So you get rid of them, you flip it, all of a sudden the books are looking good. And then it comes down to, can they win without those players? And as we found out last season, no. So
Yeah.
hopefully it goes badly for them.
Yeah, they've made 3 signings. One of them is a loan made into a permanent, which is Zalewski, for 6 million. I don't know how they did that. Fair enough. Petar Sucic is another one, defensive midfielder from Dinamo Zagreb for 14 mil. I don't know an awful lot about him really, but then they signed a new right wing back in Luis Enrique from Marseille, and I don't get that at all because they've got a starting right wing back who's very good in Denzel Dumfries.
Yeah. I like Dumfries. I've always been a Dumfries fan, but I I don't know. It's interesting. Like I said, I think they need to replace a lot of players. I do think Sucic is a good player. I don't know much about Luis Enrique, so can't really say much there. Probably not going to start over Dumfries, but I think Sucic is a good player.
Yeah, and then we'll see what happens on the sales front. Nothing major there. But look, the way that things have gone since that Champions League final, it's hard to imagine them being Napoli's main rivals at the moment. Now, they're obviously, like, unless there's a swathe of sales, they're obviously still going to be an all right team, I think. I don't think... in fact, we got a question about this, so I'll use this opportunity to read it out. It was on the Discord. Shizo, do you think Inter will have as bad a season as we just had this coming season? And how many coaches do you think that they go through? Will they finish 8th? My gut feeling is no. Because I think, Thuram and Lautaro can fire them enough goals. I think the back 3 will remain solid. I think wing back wise, Dimarco and Dumfries, it doesn't get much better than that, unfortunately. Barella's still Barella. Bastoni's still Bastoni.
I don't think they'll drop out of the Champions League places. I would be shocked if they did. I mean, I hope they do, but I think they're still a lock for top 4.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just if the discontent continues to grow, if things become more and more public, we've seen the cracks appear, and now they've been basically booted wide open by Lautaro and Marotta and Çalhanoğlu and his misses and all that stuff. I think with Simone Inzaghi, I'd back them to come through turbulence like that, but Chivu gives me supply teacher vibes, trying to control a dressing room of hyper toddlers. I don't know. I don't know how you command that instant respect. I mean, obviously he's a club legend, but as we've shown with Pipo Inzaghi and Seedorf, it doesn't always translate to, and Gattuso, it doesn't always translate to success.
Which it does. And the games we've seen under him, it's early. There's only been 4 games, but 2 of those were losses. Like I said, one was a come from behind victory, and the other one was like a not that impressive win against a not very good team. Like the 2 wins they got were ones they should have gotten. The 2 losses they got were also ones they shouldn't have lost. So I'm not sold on him, and I don't think the players are either. I think if it was Inzaghi, they would have won all 4 of those games. I mean, look what he's doing without Halal. So
I would agree with that. And there's going to be a bedding in period with a new coach, because you go from someone who has such obvious and rigid tactical principles to someone who naturally wants to play a different way. I thought Parma played some pretty good football at times last season, but it was almost an antithesis to what we've seen from Inter. So, there might be a system change. How do the players cope if he doesn't want to play 3 at the back anymore? Although it looks like he's going to play a 3-4-1-2 or something like that. But that will be interesting to watch, and I echo your hopes that it completely goes to shit nice and early. Moving on to 3rd placed Atalanta last season, Gianpiero Gasperini has finally left.
Yeah. Look, Serie A is going to be so interesting next season. I mean, it is wide open. Who replaced him? I don't.
So this is where I come into. This is the move. I don't know. This could be clipped down the line, but I think this is a really, really bad appointment. It's Ivan Juric.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
System-wise,
I think he's good, but the style's different.
So Turin, So we know what Atalanta's strengths have been in recent years, right? They've had a little bit of chameleonic formation, but it's basically been a 3 and a 4, and then either 2 attacking midfielders and a striker, attacking midfielder and 2 strikers, 2 wingers and a striker. That the front 3 has kind of changed around a little bit, but those are Gasperini's principles, as well as high pressing, high intensity football. transitions. They've been an entertaining team. They've scored a lot of goals. They've got some players that make things happen. One of whom we couldn't get anything to happen with, CDK, and then they've got Lookman, and Retegui was the Capocannoniere winner. They're an attacking team, basically. Juric's Torino never left that impression for me.
Yeah.
And the job that he got after he left Torino was Roma, and he completely failed there. And then he went to Southampton with the mission of keeping them up and failed miserably there too. So that isn't a recent CV that to me would suggest you should get the job of the team that finished third. So maybe this is one of them where, like Chivu, everyone expects a huge drop-off, but the framework is still solid enough for them to be okay.
I think
but
that's
at
what
the
they're
moment,
hoping for.
I'm worried.
But yeah, I definitely wouldn't say they're a lock for top 4. I don't think the drop-off is going to be, bottom half of the table or anything insane like that. I think they'll still be fighting for European placement. Which European spot, I have no idea. If it's Champions League, Europa Conference, who knows? But I think they'll be in and around the top 6 for sure. And they still could finish top 4. Like you said, the framework is there. Their core is super strong. Attacking players don't suddenly become non-attacking players, It's just what's going to happen when the instruction is not bomb forward and score as many goals as you can. Like, do those players get confused by that? Do they want to listen to the coach? Do they try to not listen to the coach and it backfires? Like all kinds of things. So I don't know. I mean, we saw attacking players like Teo told not to attack as much, and look what happened to him. He's now gone. So it could be really bad for them. It could also be just fine. It could be not a big deal at all. I know that's not a fun analysis, but
I mean, it's going to be the analysis for most of the teams, to be honest, because there's that much that's been thrown up in the air and landed in a different place that it's hard to imagine how next season's going to look. But I suppose the one thing you could say about Atalanta is that, obviously, they won the Europa League final against Leverkusen. Still think that was a masterpiece, but they've kind of fallen short everywhere else. They've been like in Scudetto races, and then they've fallen out of them. And they probably haven't won as much as they could have done in this recent era. Although that's maybe been a bit harsh because resource-wise, they're still not quite at the level of the top teams. But maybe with Gasperini's style being so entertaining, but at times not pragmatic enough to win the biggest of games, maybe Juric, a coach who's going to teach them a little bit of resilience, could be the perfect way to finish what they're going for. But I'm just stabbing in the dark as to why they went for him and not like Palladino, or I think that was the obvious choice to me, was Palladino. In terms of keeping the similar philosophy. But they didn't go for him. And the Gasperini thing leads us nicely. We spoke a bit about Juve. I don't think Juve have actually made any signings, have they? I could be wrong.
I have no idea, honestly.
But yeah, were you worried about Juve if Conte had have decided to go back there?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I'll be worried about any team that has Conte. Honestly, he's, in my opinion, a top 3 coach all time, or at least since I've been around. I would put Pep number 1, and then you can make an argument for Conte at 2 or 3. So, yeah, I think he's an incredible manager. I would be scared of him at any team. Monza would scare me with him.
In Serie B.
Yeah, exactly.
Juve have actually signed 4 players and spent 74 million, but they're all loans to permanence. So Di Gregorio from Monza, Kalulu from us, obviously for 14 mil, Lloyd Kelly from Newcastle, 17 mil, Nico Gonzalez from Fiorentina, 28 mil. And in terms of departures, Rovella went on a permanent to Lazio after his loan. Fagioli to Fiorentina, same thing. Luca Pellegrini to Lazio, same thing. And Nicolucci Caviglia to Venice, same thing, loan to permanent. So yeah, nothing there that in terms of new players, it's all just deals being converted. So yeah, I mean, we spoke a little bit about Tudor. Do you think Juve top 4 will be realistic again for them? It'll be what they have to get, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be the same boring analysis I just gave, but yeah, I don't think they're a lock, but I definitely don't think they're going to be missing out by any drastic amount. And to be honest, that's right about where they've been the last few seasons, is that 4th to 5th area, So if they just barely miss out on the last day, I would have no shock. And if they made it in, if they just stayed fourth the whole season, I would have no shock. I think I would be more shocked if they actually do compete for the title, because I have a hunch that first is going to be, maybe within 1 to 2 game swing of second place at the end of the season. And I think second and third is going to be a pretty big gap. I don't see multiple teams competing consistently. I think it'll be Napoli and Milan for a while.
Kind of like last season, then, in the way that Inter and Napoli broke away in that Scudetto battle and left Atalanta behind. Atalanta ended up in a top 4 battle rather than going for the title. Yeah, I think Juve are. If they get Jonathan David, I think that's a positive step for them. But it feels like whack-a-mole with them a little bit, in the sense that they've always got problems to try and solve. Both in terms of sometimes needing to raise cash, but like they went out last summer, and I was gutted that they got Douglas Luiz. So I was like, if he was available, he'd have been a perfect number 6 for us, and yet he did nothing. And now they're trying to offload him for way less than what they got him for, So there are things that look good on paper and don't work out. They haven't done anything in terms of new business, but I think David would be solid enough. They've got the Vlahovic issue to try and figure out. They're trying to get rid of, it seems, Tim Weah, and there was Mbangula was linked with an exit as well. So they're clearly trying to raise money, but I think while they're still the same as what they were, it's hard to imagine them, as you say, missing out on a top 4, or certainly not by a massive distance. Gasperini has gone to Roma. What do you think about that?
That one is so interesting, because now the real test begins. Was Gasperini a system man that just worked at Atalanta? Was there something fishy going on at Atalanta that won't happen at Roma? Who knows? I think we're going to see, again, either one of the best teams in Serie A or a mid-table team. I think they are absolutely at risk of finishing like 9th or 10th. I mean, obviously it depends on who comes in, because they want to keep Gasperini if they're struggling that bad that early. But I could also see him being a 3rd place finisher. Gasperini's such a good coach. It did take a little bit of time for him to kick in at Atalanta, though, that, they were kind of just Europa League spot. And I think at Roma, you can be a Europa League team consistently without much criticism. I think that's just kind of where they're usually at. So I think he might be given a decent amount of leeway, a long leash there. And I think Gasperini could really turn them something special, especially if Dybala doesn't get injured, if he stays around, if they make the right signings. I mean, I'm basing everything off of last season's roster, right? The transfer window opened a few hours ago, so it's not like many moves have been completed. But I think they might be a force to be reckoned with, or they could be just a mega flop.
They could, and that I agree with you. I see Roma having quite a high potential ceiling if things go really well, but a very low potential floor, and that would kind of be a replicant of last season, in the sense that, midway through they're in like 11th place. They call upon Ranieri to try bail them out of the shit, and then they end up finishing just outside the Champions League places. So we saw the highs and lows of Roma's potential in last season. I think that going Ranieri to Gasperini is a really safe transition on paper. I think system-wise, they're going to play the same. I think, again, the emphasis will be on playing fun football above all. We saw Roma turn into a team that scored in bunches under Ranieri. It's just how, as you kind of mentioned, how long a leash they have, in particular the Roma fans, because Ranieri sat next to Gasperini in his unveiling and told him, these fans don't like you. And he said it with a serious face. And I don't exactly know why that is. It doesn't have a past with Lazio or anything, to my knowledge.
I think no one likes Atalanta, right? I don't think there's many fans of clubs that are like, no, Atalanta's a cool team, at least not Serie A, because they kind of were the nobodies that came up out of nowhere and just became a thorn in the side of every large team in the league. So I think a lot of them dislike it, and Gasperini's not exactly a friendly figure in the media. You know, he likes to talk a lot of shit. He likes to cry a lot and say, you know, we're the victims and you guys suck and, you know, all that stuff. So he's probably said something to get specifically under Roma fans' skin.
Yeah.
I know he's done it to Milan fans. Like, I don't know a single Milan fan that doesn't wish the worst upon this man. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But the other thing is he's not the same type of man manager as Ranieri. Like Ranieri
That's
gets
true.
the best out of him out of being kind and motivated, whereas Gasperini is a bit of a dick. So they might just it'll be a total 180 in terms of man management. He might have the same play style, but I don't know if they're gonna give to him right away. Like, especially I don't know. I mean, yeah, the more I think about it, I think it's not going to go well for them. They're going to need to make some big changes. I mean, their team's kind of old. Dare I say
it
old?
needs to start well. He needs to build instant trust, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, things could turn pretty sour pretty quickly.
I didn't know was 28 already. I thought he was younger than that.
Yeah. I think the thing that he did at Atalanta continuously that really pissed their fan base off was that he just went to war with the star players out of nowhere.
Yeah,
you know, he started picking on Ilicic, then he went for Papu Gomez. You know, in that previous sort of time, I think he basically forced Luis Muriel out the door. Lookman, he started beefing with last season. You know, despite the fact that he was arguably the best left winger in the league, and like it's strange. He does clash with people, so there is that. But I look at that Roma team and I think, are there any massive characters anyway?
Mancini,
maybe
Paredes.
Dybala wants to fuck off. You know, I keep reading stuff about him going back to Juve, which I would not like. But yeah, no, that's true. Mancini, definitely a hothead.
Bit of a hot take. I don't think Dybala will succeed if he goes anywhere else. I just don't think
maybe not.
He can stay fit long enough to actually make an impact. I mean,
I know. Do you know? I don't. You know what I'm going to say? The last time Dybala stayed fit, Allegri's fitness team were there, weren't they? So, and he brought them with him to us.
Yeah, we don't need him. We don't need him. But I'd take him for a year or two.
Yeah. Now, yeah, Roma, as said, I if you told me they finished 4th, I would not be surprised. If you told me they finished 9th, I'd say, yeah, I could also see that coming. So they'll be an interesting one to watch. In terms of transfers, what have they done so far? Nothing. They've not brought anybody new in. They had a couple of loans that turned into permanent sales. Enzo Lafitte to Sunderland. That was a strange one, by the way. They spent quite a bit of money on him, and he went to a championship team that got promoted ultimately. Samuel Dahl to Benfica. So yeah, that's Roma. Then who came after Roma? Lazio. Is that right? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So
Lazio.
they're a fucking mess, huh?
Yes, they are.
Sorry, already wants to resign. It's been 2 weeks. Hard to really give an analysis when they're in a situation like that. But bottom line is not bringing in any players. We know that for a fact. And I don't think they were good enough anyways. Now, if Sarri stays, he might be able to keep them right around 5th or 6th, but they are for sure not a Champions League caliber team going into next season. If he leaves, I don't think there is a manager alive that looks at that situation and says, I could do something. You know, you're going to get a guy who's up and coming, who needs a big name club to where he could really try to make a statement for himself. And I think it's more risk than reward. I don't think any of these up and coming. I mean, look, an up and coming guy is going to go because it's Lazio, and you know he'll be like, if I fail at Lazio early in my managerial career, it's not the end of the world. But if you're a semi-established guy like a Palladino, who you said, I think it's a big risk. I think you're a guy whose stock is high, but not sky high to where a failure doesn't matter. I think he's at a point where it's like do or die. You take a club like Lazio and you fail there, your stock's right back down there with the new guys. So I don't see those people taking the job. I think you would get, ironically, like a Kivu who.
Yeah, I was just going to say, might he have been like, if he hadn't already gone to win. And it's something that that I think we should add now as like an undercurrent to all of this is that while the coaching carousel was happening, Spalletti got sacked by the national team. And
God, I forgot about that.
And I think there's a few teams that are like, fuck, we cashed in our chips too early here. Like, Inter would have probably had him back over.
Well, look, September's not that far away. Let's be
No,
real.
fair
We
point.
know someone's getting sacked and Spalletti's coming in. So
Yeah, I
I
mean, he
think the
might
first
just be
international breaks
under a
after week
contract,
2, which
but
no
yeah,
one's getting signed then. But yeah,
yeah.
October.
As you said, Lazio can't sign anybody. They've made some of their loans permanent, which was expected. So Nuno Tavares and Nicola Ravella, Luca Pellegrini, Dele Bashiru. So yeah, that's going to be it unless they raise. I think it's 90 million capital. And I know Maurizio Sarri has kind of gone to war with various figures at previous clubs in the past, and sometimes you can say he was out of line or whatever. This time, I would not blame him if he walked away.
No, not at all.
If it's true the extent of the financial problems were hidden from him, then it's breach of contract on Lazio's end. Surely he should be able to rip that deal up and go to wherever he wants.
Yeah, I would walk, honestly. I mean,
Yeah,
90 mil in capital by, well, I guess immediately because the window's open. Every day that ticks by is a missed opportunity. So you have to sell those 2 guys you just made permanent that are your only good players, Nuno Tavares and Ravella. Or not Ravella. Yeah, it's Ravella, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
Would you test him with a bid for both? I would.
I would. I would
Yeah, man,
offer
that'd be
him
great.
50 mil for both. Because that's
Yeah,
the
and
other thing. You can lowball them right now. And it's like, well, we need money. If you raise 50 mil, it's better than raising 0 mil out of the 90. You might get a reduced sentence when you appeal it because they're going to. So
yeah, and also if the problem is that they still need to raise more money after that until they're able to unlock things and sign players as replacements, surely you can get crafty with some player plus cash deals. You could offer him 30 mil plus Terracciano. There's your new starting fullback, guys, for Tavares, and then you could offer him. I don't know. You could probably throw Bondo in a deal for
yeah.
Ravella or something. You can get creative with it, and just
Mhm.
there should be vultures circling around them. And if it's true that Inter did go in for Ravella, then I'd be kind of worried if they got him as a 6 to replace.
Well, and they did
Çalhanoğlu.
say that we made it, that they turned down an offer from us in January for Nuno Tavares.
Tavares, yeah, a significant cash sum.
Well, it probably was flipping that Teo money that we were offered from Como.
I think that's what it would have been. Yeah. It will be interesting to see what happens there. Lazio have done their usual thing. Sarri is staying out of loyalty to the club and because he believes in what we're doing, and also saying we don't desperately need to sell players, and it seems like you do, lads. But all right, we'll take your word for it. Where are we now? Fiorentina.
They're going to
Another
drop off. I just don't see any.
strange one.
Nothing from them says that they're going to be better this season than last season. I think other teams are getting better and they're kind of staying stagnant. So I think they drop off. You're going to see them probably 8th or 9th next season.
Yeah, I was surprised about the way that things went there with them losing Palladino. I didn't think they had a terrible season.
No, they had a good season by their standards.
Yeah, so I don't know what's happened there, and I don't think we're any closer to knowing what the real truth behind it is. But I think what's happened is that Palladino thought, I'm going to jump here. Like I'm going to be able to get one of the top jobs that's available. And to force the issue, he's obviously basically resigned.
Yeah.
Walked
that's
away.
exactly what I see too, because he knew that at the time, Conte was threatening to leave Napoli. Inzaghi was basically gone. It was the worst kept secret that he was going to Al Hilal. No shocker that we weren't keeping Conceição. Who else? Gasperini left. Roma, we knew needed a coach. So he was thinking, oh, I'm making a jump here. I'm definitely the hottest prospect who finished outside the top 10, or I'm sorry, not top 10, top 5. And then no one went for him. So it's interesting to see. And I wonder if it's because he resigned that the other clubs are like, yeah, I'm not going to trust this guy, But he definitely, I mean, it's weird. So I don't know where he's going to land. Maybe he just takes a bit of a sabbatical. Maybe he pretends that's what he wanted the whole time.
Do you think Inter, are you surprised Inter didn't have a look at Palladino?
I am actually, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that might have been something.
I think it's money, dude. I think they're hurting.
I was just racking my brains to think who Fiorentina had hired as his replacement. The answer is nobody. They have not yet hired his replacement.
Palladino back.
Honestly, Don't rule
It
it
might
out.
just be a contract renewal, wage increase, you know?
Yeah. That's some way to get leverage. Resign.
Yeah. Oh man.
I
It'd be very Serie
wonder.
A.
Yeah, I wonder what happens there. I would have said Farioli might have been good for them, but it looks like he's going to Porto, which
That's an
surprises me. They
interesting move.
tend to
Yeah.
like a Portuguese coach, generally to Porto. And Sarri might have been
No,
one if.
Pioli went to Fiorentina.
Oh, what the fuck am I on about? It's not been announced yet. That's why I
Ah,
googled it. Yeah, of course it's purely going back. Ignore me, everyone. It's hot. Yeah. Look, that's not bad. That's not the
it's not
worst case
good.
scenario for them.
I don't think
Um,
Pioli's going to do anything good with them, man. In fact, I'd be surprised if he. I don't know if he'll get sacked, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did. You know, there's also a chance he
hmm,
survives the season, but I don't think they're going to do anything with him. I think Pioli's career was blessed to go to Milan at the time that it did. Not that he's the world's worst coach or anything like that. Like, obviously, you know, grass was not greener when he left, but um, I don't think he's that top level guy to bring a team like Fiorentina to the next tier. You know, I think they're
hmm.
right around 10th is where they're going to finish, perfectly
Ooh.
mid table, and that's that. I just don't see what a guy like Pioli can do with that squad.
Yeah. It's tough to know what to think about Pioli as a manager now because what he did with us was his first real success. I
It's
guess
his
you could say
only
finishing.
success.
Yeah, I guess you could say finishing third with Lazio, given relative expectations and stuff. But that was in 2014-15, so that was a long time ago. Then he won the Scudetto with us, and obviously that built his reputation to a point where he was managing Cristiano Ronaldo. But that didn't go very well. So,
No,
now he's back in Italy. Will he be sort of full of energy and ready to once again, to like finally try prove that he's a top end Serie A coach and has been all along? Or is it more likely that he's just sort of jumped at the first thing that he could and he's going back to a comfort zone? I know he's still obviously very well regarded by Fiorentina fans because of what he oversaw there, a difficult period after the passing of Astori. But yeah, how they actually perform, I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting. I think the tools are there. So they hang on to Moise Kean. I think that there are things there with the squad that's encouraging. But I just wonder if they get off to a bad start.
yeah,
Is he going to be under pressure straight away? The thing with Fiorentina is it feels pretty safe to predict them 7th to 10th every season, and it's no different with Pioli. Like I
yep,
think he'll probably get them there. Speaking of which, Bologna under Italiano, they're the other club where not much has changed, but it looks like they might lose a couple of big names, Bequema.
yeah. They're definitely falling off, right? Over the last couple seasons, you're seeing them move down the rungs a bit.
Hmm.
I think they bounce back though. I think they're gonna do better despite their continuity. You know, I think they're gonna do better because of everyone else's carousel of changes.
Hmm.
I think that they're probably gonna be fighting for Champions League, but just miss out. And I could see a 5th place finish for them
Oh right,
because
that's quite high
yeah, I
because they
think they're
finished
still a
9th.
really good team. And I think that they finished 9th because they just simply weren't better than the teams above them. I would say they're probably better than Milan was, to be honest. But on paper, the
Oh yeah.
players, Milan's a better team. Now Milan has a better manager, so I think we'll jump as well. But I think the other teams are going to drop off. Like Roma has a hard time, in my opinion. I think Lazio has a hard time. Fiorentina's not going to do too well. I think Atalanta is going to drop off a bit, and I could really see Bologna taking advantage of that.
Tell you who I think will take advantage of a team dropping off. I feel us, yeah.
Yes.
I feel very confident in saying that this upcoming season, Como will get a European spot.
Yeah.
I
don't think it'll be a Champions League, but I could see him getting
No.
conference.
Yeah, I can see them finishing 6th or 7th.
Mhm.
In fact, it would have to be. Well, it depends what happens with the cup, doesn't it? We saw. But yeah, Como are they're splashing the cash again already. Whether they're going to run into some difficulties with this when they finally do get into Europe, or if they finally do get into Europe, we'll see. But yeah, they've spent on Baturina from Dinamo Zagreb. They're signing. Who else are they signing? Oh, Chow potentially for 25 mil.
Yeah.
And there was another deal as well that
There
was
was a
take
big
them
name
towards 100 million. I've gone blank.
they got to keep Nico Paz as well.
Yeah, they weren't like at times last season. They gave the top teams a real scare,
Yeah,
and in some cases took points. And Fabregas has stayed, so they've got that aspect of continuity.
And he's finally getting his coaching license.
Yeah. So yeah, I can see Como taking a jump this season, but I kind of thought the same about Monza when they came up and they stayed up really comfortably, and it's like Berlusconi didn't have enough to fund us, but you could have funded them towards the European spots.
Yeah.
In the end, obviously, he passed away and they dropped off a cliff. They're in Serie B now. But yeah, I think Como deserve a shout for potentially upsetting the apple cart. But I think we've named the top 10 teams there in whatever order. I would also say look out for Genoa, who were fantastic under Vieira. Well, not fantastic, but they were much improved when Vieira took charge there. And I think he's a coach to watch. And I think that they've got some interesting players. And some of them haven't gone yet. Friendship's still there. And so we'll see with them. But it's going to be an interesting league this year. Like it feels like we say it going into every season, but this season in particular, musical chairs, man.
Yeah.
It's been something.
I think last season was one that we kind of were nervous about because there wasn't many changes outside of Conte coming in, which obviously was a big deal and everyone knew that they were going to do well because of it. So yeah, we were poised to do poorly then, and I think we're poised to do well now.
Certainly better.
Yeah,
it has to.
I'm not predicting us to win the Scudetto, but I do think we're going to compete for it this year. I really do. Obviously, this is day one of the transfer window, and there's a month and a half of craziness that can happen where, every placement we just gave these teams can totally change. We'll probably do something very similar to this the week before the season starts anyways, So
yeah, season predictions.
If anyone hears that episode and says, that's not what you said a month ago. Yeah, 100%. Yes. There's a lot that's going to change. So who knows? But right now I'm content.
Yeah, we've also picked about 5 teams there to finish between 2nd and 8th. So
yeah, it wasn't like revolutionary, Yeah,
we can hone it in as time goes on. Let's do some quick fire questions. We've got a few minutes. Ari197 on the Discord, between Benacer, Adley, and Pobega, who has the most chance of staying, and who do you want to stay the most?
Benacer for both. I think Adley we've already put back in the shop window. Benacer is also back in the shop window. I think he's been announced not in the plans, but I think Pobega as well, right? All 3 of them have been told find a home. And if there's one of them that I would like to see stay, it would be Benacer, because on his day, he's one of the best midfielders, at least on our squad, or the league. It's just a matter of, can he stay fit? Can he stay healthy and in shape? And can we utilize him the right way? And I think a guy like Allegri would. So I would like to see Benacer return.
Fully agree with all that. Benacer is shoulders above the others in terms of what he's achieved as a football player, his technical ability, those kind of things. The only thing that has let him down is his fitness. So if we can get him fit, then the answer is Benacer. I guess slight caveat: who's got the best chance? You could maybe argue Pobega just for squad list reasons, but. Yeah. Kieran, any realistic left-back targets to replace Teo? It's kind of quiet on this front to say Teo's about to be a done deal. Not heard much about both starting fullbacks.
I think the guy from Bruges, De Kuiper. I'm seeing low fees, like 18 mil from other clubs being in. And I think we're really trying to negotiate the other guy whose name I don't know.
Jashari, a package deal type thing.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think, because we're getting closer. I keep seeing we're creeping up and up and up. Now we're at like 35 plus bonus or something for him, which insane money. If he better be worth it. But Bruges always has a hard bargain. And I think that's the guy we want to throw in there. Is once we hit a deal, we go, okay, we agree at 40 mil. let's make it 50 and here give us De Kuiper as well, even though they want 18 to 20. But I think that's where they're playing with it, because both players are want away. I think they know that they're not going to keep both of them, and so why not send them to the same team? Hopefully, Otherwise, we go back in for Nuno Tavares and try to raid Lazio while they need money. But I would be Cambiaso above all. It's impossible.
Yeah, that I was literally gonna say exactly what you've just said there. I was gonna say, who do I want? Tavares. I test them with a bid. I really would, because I think I said it last season when he was in very good form. He's exactly what Teo was, in terms of the way that he played. But I think realistically, it will probably be someone like De Kuiper. If you want to go a bit left field, we were linked with Wesley from Flamengo. I had a bit of a look at him. He looks like someone quite promising. And then you just get another Brazilian on the right side, don't you? Got to be Dodo.
I would love Dodo. Also, I know I'm going to get yank shouts for this, but I wouldn't mind going back in for Anthony Robinson.
Yeah. He's become
really
top player in the Premier League. Yeah.
He saved his life, so he owes us.
He does, yeah. Come on, show a bit of appreciation, Anthony. Right, what we got here? Lud's saying with a decent number of sales, do you think we'll go for Moise Kean?
The striker thing's interesting. The report that came out the other day was that we're going to spend the most amount of money on a striker, but all of a sudden we're at 40 mil for a midfielder. You want me to believe that we're spending 40 mil on a midfielder and then 45 more on a striker or greater? I don't see that happening.
So me and Ben did the net spend zero summer window,
right?
To try and make things challenging on that bonus pod that we did. And I guess you could say that with the sale of Teo Hernandez, and presumably Moose is going to go somewhere for 25 million. That's what all the reports are saying, be it Premier League or Napoli. We're getting towards that 125, 130 mil range in terms of the money that we've received from transfers. So if you presume that we can spend all that, given we're in profit for the past year now, I guess Modric free, Ricci 25 mil including bonuses, Jashari, let's say 35 mil including bonuses. You still got a 90 mil to play with there. So can you spend 40, 50 mil on a striker, gives you 50 mil, 40, 50 mil then for your new fullbacks. And if De Kuiper's 20 and Guelladue's 20, then all of a sudden you've kind of like completed your team with the money that you've got available. And that's without thinking about any other sales. So I can see the math.
Yeah, I mean,
or the math.
When you put it that way, it does. The math is mathing, I get it.
But Anto Vitiello said in his latest column for Milan News that the striker budget's 40 to 50 mil. So that's where I got that from.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen like a pursuit as pre-mapped out as this, because Tari has said exactly what we're looking for. And we know that we've got a lot of money to spend. Like the Jimenez signing. We knew that we needed to invest in a striker at some point, and we kind of like kicked it down the road with Morata last summer. But the Jimenez thing surprised us all, because it's like, we're going to spend over 30 mil in January. That's not like us, But we got it in, and to now be spending even more than that on another striker down the line, it feels strange. I'm excited by it, and I think it means we're going to get a name. You have to get a name with that kind of budget.
Yeah.
But I'm still really intrigued as to who it is, and whether we wait until late on to try and get one of those opportunities, maybe a player that hasn't moved that was expected to, or but that's the big enigma of the summer for me. That and who the hell the starting fullbacks are going to be. Let me do one from Twitter and then we'll wrap up. Oh, Chris asked, which striker do you think we can afford and attract who could score 20 goals needed to compete for the title? Kind of just spoke about that. Back to the Discord. No, I'm going to wrap it up there. That's all the questions. Going around an hour. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Sorry for the little technical difficulty a little bit earlier on. But yeah, I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. Find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. AJ, cheers for joining.
Yep, I'll see you guys whenever we're next on a podcast.
Yeah, bonus later this week. Stay tuned for that. Early next week, main podcast. Keep checking the site for features, news, all that stuff. And have a fantastic week, everyone.